It would not have endangered his body, but his spirit, that is another matter. That was Obi-Wan Kenobi to Master Kit Fisto. By the height of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi had become one of the most tempered blades that the Jedi had ever seen. He had stood across from Dooku, his flawless precision, traded tactics besides Anakin Skywalker's reckless brilliance, and survived the mechanical onslaught of General Grievous. Every duel, every campaign had pressed him deeper into the furnace of the war until the Jedi Knight of old was completely burned away, leaving now only the calm, calculating master of Surisu, the unbroken wall of the Republic. Obi-Wan was a scholar of lightsaber forms, but he was also their survivor. He had seen how technique could crumble under emotion, how conviction could fracture under pressure, and yet, even after everything, the one lightsaber form that still unsettled him most wasn't the feral intensity of Juyo or the brutal brilliance of So. It was the first, Form 1, Shii-Cho. Obi-Wan didn't fear it for its lack of refinement. He feared it because when wielded by Kit Fisto, it was too alive. There was joy in Fisto's movement, a rhythmic abandon that felt almost celebratory, dangerous not to the body but to the soul as he describes it. To a man who had learned to survive through restraint, that kind of freedom was terrifying. The ancient Jedi Masters had called it the way of the Sarlacc, not for its savagery, but for its patience, the unending hunger that consumes everything yet moves only when necessary. That was Shicho's essence, a form that strips away hesitation, devours uncertainty, and leaves behind only instinct. And to master it completely, a Jedi had to surrender to that rhythm without losing themselves to it. That was the danger that Obi-Wan saw. That was the hunger that never dies. To study it was to be digested by it, to have hesitation, fear, and ego dissolve piece by piece until only instinct remained. The form devours doubt, it consumes control, and when nothing is left but flow, when the Jedi no longer thinks, only moves, mastery is achieved. For most, that mastery never comes. They are consumed instead, lost to the current between serenity and surrender. That is because Shicho, more than any other lightsaber form, demands emotion. It asks the Jedi to believe, to fight with conviction and with righteous fury. And conviction unguarded is a door that the dark side knows how to open. The way of the Sarlacc. Shicho was the first attempt to shape the Force into a martial language. Before there were many Sith, before the Jedi turned their blades on one another in civil war, there was only chaos. The early Jedi were peacekeepers who stood between civilization and barbarity. Their enemies were slavers, raiders, beasts, not other Force wielders. Against such hordes, Shicho was perfect. It was the art of control through movement, wide sweeping arcs designed not to kill but to corral. Each strike was an act of balance, a gesture of dominance through flow. To master it was to become a conductor of the battlefield, a dancer of momentum and distance. In those moments, the form became something almost sacred. Not violence, but harmony in motion with the Force. Jedi records from the earliest wars describe knights who would enter meditation mid-battle, their lightsabers carving luminous circles through enemy ranks. Others spoke of masters who could redirect blaster fire in perfect rhythm, turning chaos into choreography. The form's simplicity was deceptive. Its purpose was not efficiency, but communion, a pure expression of the Force through instinct. And this is why the modern Jedi feared it. The ancients had learned, because in that perfect harmony lies the temptation to surrender, to let go completely. And once a Jedi lets go, the Force no longer will distinguish between light and dark, only will. Shicho left unchained is a path to the dark side. But that is the price of freedom. Many Jedi abandon Form 1 as soon as they learn it. It is a foundation, a way to teach balance and discipline, but not a weapon of war. At least not modern war. But there are a few who see past its simplicity. To them, the form's raw, unshaped nature is not weakness, it is truth. Among that rare group is Kit Fisto. Where many fought with solemnity, he fought with joy. His every movement seemed to laugh in the face of death, and that laughter unsettled even his closest of allies. To Fisto, the Force was life. Shii-Cho was the language of life. He embodied its rhythm so completely that he could move through battle as if guided by an unseen current. He was disarming, redirecting, smiling. He fought Grievous not as a swordsman, but as a tide, flowing unpredictable and untouchable. 4 blades against 1, Fisto Shii-Cho was made for such odds. Against a single foe, it left openings. Against a storm of enemies, it thrived. And yet, Obi-Wan Kenobi's words still linger. It would not have endangered his body, but his spirit. Because there is a line within Shicho that only the greatest can walk. The razor-thin divide between faith and abandonment. When a Jedi gives themselves to instinct, they flirt with the same seduction that drives Juyo. Both forms are born from feeling. Both are fueled by trust in the Force. The difference is that Juyo reveals surrender, while Shicho demands control within the chaos. This is why so few ever master it. It is not the first storm, it is the most dangerous. Because the way to fight Kit Fisto fought, a Jedi must move in perfect balance with the Force itself. And to move in perfect balance is to risk falling forever. Shicho was born of an age before Jedi fought Jedi. It was designed for chaos, for beasts, pirates, mobs, and warlords, not for the surgical violence that the Sith would later attempt to perfect. That is its greatest strength, and its oldest flaw. For all of its flow and freedom, Form 1 is not a duelist's art. Its wide, deliberate arcs leaves openings that a Makashi wielder will exploit with ease. Dooku, perhaps the most refined practitioner of Form 2 to ever live, once described Shicho as deliberate as a lumber droid, moving step by step, cutting off angles, clumsy, but relentlessly dogged. In a single duel, the doggedness can become a death sentence. Where Form 2 narrows the motion to a needle's point, Shicho spreads it like a flood. Powerful indeed, but very difficult to focus. Against the duelist, in the intimacy of a duel, precision rules. Every movement becomes a dialogue, feint and counter, rhythm and deception. Form 2 thrives there. Its practitioners read the flow of a fight like language, translating motion into inevitability. To a Form 2 user, Shicho's sweeping style is a gift. It telegraphs every strike. Even for a Jedi whose instincts were near perfect, the older form's patterns could not compete with precision refined over millennia of lightsaber to lightsaber warfare. A similar truth held when Kit Fisto would face Darth Sidious. The duel is brief, but it is telling. Against multiple foes, Fisto's form was unmatched. Against a single opponent who understood tempo and deceit, it faltered. Sidious struck not faster but smaller. Where Shicho moved like a tide, Sidious would move like a knife. And the wider form could not contain him. But Form 1 also had a problem against the strong. Jem-So Form 5 poses another threat. Where Makashi is precision, Jem-So is pressure. Its heavy driving strikes are built to overwhelm defense through force alone. And Shicho, for all of its mobility, was never built to withstand that kind of kinetic assault. Imagine a Shicho practitioner facing a Jem-So master on the open battlefield. Perhaps a Jedi Knight turned warlord, his lightsaber hammering down like a meteor strike. The Form 1 stylist can parry once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times, but each block absorbs the storm rather than redirects it. The wider stance that grants them balance against crowds becomes a liability. Every blow pushes them backward until the line eventually breaks. That is the paradox of Shicho. Its defense is strength through motion, but not through endurance. When the fight compresses into a single point, when the battlefield becomes a duel, the current has nowhere to go. Shicho is a form for the field. Here, it can be transcendent. Against squads of blaster-wielding soldiers or beasts charging from all directions, no other form flows so naturally. Its practitioners move like dancers in the rain, every motion purposeful, every sweep carrying momentum into the next. Picture the Clone Wars, blaster fire cutting through the smoke of Felucia. A Jedi Knight wades forward, deflecting bolts with long circular motions, each turn of the wrist catching a different trajectory. To the untrained eye, it looks wild, even desperate. But the rhythm is deliberate, each broad movement covering multiple allies, each step guiding the battle's flow. In such moments, Shicho reclaims its ancient glory. It is not a form of duelists, it is a form of leaders. The Jedi who mastered it were not hunters, they were shepherds guiding chaos into order. On the fields of Malastare, Jedi archives speak of Shicho wielders directing platoons through force-guided momentum, their lightsabers not weapons, but beacons. Against swarming droids, they cut wide arcs through metal and flame, redirecting enemy formations. That was Shicho at its peak. Less about killing, more about shaping the current of the battle itself. The temptation of rhythm, though, was always there. The battlefield is seductive. When victory comes through instinct, it whispers that instinct alone is not enough. A Jedi begins to trust the rhythm, the pulse of combat, the living heartbeat of the Force that flows through them, until instinct becomes indulgence, and indulgence is the first step to obsession. That is the real danger of Shii-Cho. It does not lead the Jedi to the dark side through rage or hatred. It leads them there naturally with joy. Through the exhilaration of perfect motion, of feeling the Force respond to every impulse like an extension of their own body. That is what Obi-Wan speaks about when he talks about Kit Fisto's form. He recognized Shicho for what it was, mastery balanced on the edge of surrender, a style so free, so trusting, that it could dissolve the wall between discipline and desire. For a lesser Jedi, that joy would have become hunger, and hunger would have devoured them whole. It is why few ever attempted to perfect Form 1. To bring it to its peak requires not just technique, but total spiritual control. To move without fear, but also without indulgence. That paradox mirrors another form, 7, Juyo, the reflections of the abyss. Form 7, the feral expression of the dark side, is the mirror of Shii-Cho. Both rely on instinct. Both require the Jedi to act without conscious thought. But where Shii-Cho teaches control within freedom, Juyo embraces freedom without control. Juyo is the scream, Shii-Cho is the breath before it. The one is chaos unleashed, the other is chaos tempered, and it is because they share the same root that so many Jedi who delved too deep into Shii-Cho's flow found themselves teetering on the edge of corruption. The ancient masters understood it, that this is why Shii-Cho was taught first, to train younglings to feel emotion, to recognize it, to move with it, without being consumed by it. It was not simply the foundation of lightsaber combat, it was the foundation of a Jedi's philosophy. Yet that lesson came at a cost. To truly feel the Force is to feel everything, the light, the dark, and the hunger that never dies. Only a few, Lucian Dre, Kit Fisto, maybe Mitra Surik, ever walked that line without falling into it. For every Jedi who masters Shii-Cho, 1,000 more are consumed by it, their balance eroded, their clarity dissolved, their purpose forgotten in the endless rhythm of combat. To wield it perfectly is to hold infinity in your hands for a heartbeat, and to walk away unburned. Few ever do this. Even now, centuries after its creation, the Jedi teach it to their young not as a weapon, but as a warning, because in its simplicity lies everything that makes the Force both beautiful and dangerous. The promise of total unity, and the peril of total surrender. Kit Fisto's mastery of Shii-Cho was something closer to a miracle, because among the 7 disciplines of lightsaber combat, none were as misunderstood or as dangerous. Its simplicity lulls the Jedi into thinking it is the beginning, but mastery of Form 1 is like trying to sculpt water. Every swing is described as a test of balance between instinct and reason, faith and fear. And because of this, its gulf between student and master is wider than any other form. Where Form 2 rewards study, and Form 5 rewards power, Form 1 demands something rarer, complete surrender without corruption. The Jedi who use it do not conquer the Force, they join with its living essence. Their blades move as extensions of will, effortlessly flowing, but never indulgent. Kit Fisto's true test came in the Chancellor's office, in the confrontation that shattered the Jedi Order. This is where Form 1 met its match. When Sidious ignited his lightsaber blade, the air itself seemed to fracture. For 2 Jedi, the duel lasted seconds. Agen Kolar and Say-Tin fell almost instantaneously. But Fisto endured. He lasted longer than any except Windu. In the novel for Revenge of the Sith, Fisto and Windu fight together side by side for precious moments. Each parry of the Emperor strikes in unison. For those fleeting seconds, 2 philosophies of the Jedi moved in harmony. Windu's Vapad, channeling darkness through discipline, and Kit Fisto's Shii-Cho, channeling life through instinct. The pairing is poetic, the most advanced Jedi form, and the oldest one. The scream and the breath, standing together against the embodiment of the dark side. It is honestly shocking that Fisto lasted as long as he did. Sidious was perhaps the greatest and most powerful Sith of the entire era, and yet even he needed time to break Fisto's flow. The The Nautilus movements were unpredictable, alive, and radiant with purpose. But the precision of the Sith finally found its mark. Where Shicho's great arcs had triumphed against armies, they could not contain a blade driven by pure malice and deception. Sidious cut through, and the laughter that had once echoed across battlefields now fell silent. In the years that followed, Jedi historians would write that Fisto embodied the way of the Sarlacc to perfection, one of the rare few. Like the ancient creature he waited, he endured, and when the moment came, he struck with impossible grace. Even Sidious could not erase that. Among surviving archives, one stands out. To master Shicho is to stand at the edge of surrender, and to never fall. Few can. Most are devoured by their own rhythm. But in rare souls, the rhythm becomes the Force itself. It is the most emotional of the light side forms, and therefore the one that is easily mistaken for darkness. A Jedi who fights without hate, but also without fear, walks closer to the abyss than any Sith can imagine. And yet when it is mastered, it becomes a kind of perfection. A reminder that the Force is not logic or will, but connection. The bond between movement and meaning, between faith and fire. Every youngling who ignites a training lightsaber begins the same journey that the first Jedi once took. Most will move on to other forms, chasing mastery through specialization. But the greats, Lucian Dreys, the Kit Fistos, the unnamed guardians who fought in the Forgotten Wars, all will return to it in the end. Because in its simplest motion lies every truth the Jedi ever sought. That peace is not the absence of battle, but the mastery of oneself within it. That the line between passion and serenity is razor thin, and that the first form, the beginning, is also the last. And with that, my friends, may the Force be with you, and have an amazing day.